yesterday as the most conservative district in the entire country. Do you find that to be true? I like that.
Well, good morning to everybody. It actually has changed, and I think the spirit of that is still true, but the numbers will tell you a different story. This district, and now I am going to be campaigning in North Austin, actually in Pflugerville, does contain many more Democrats than it once did. So that I don't think that's true by the numbers, but let's keep that spirit the same. So I'll, when you look at that, you're almost 400 miles, about 375 miles east to west between Pflugerville and Odessa. It is a big, long district. Takes you almost 6 hours to drive east to west, but it does change, obviously, when you get to Travis County and does not have that conservative flavor like it does in Midland and Odessa.
Well, anyway, we are glad to be in this district. It's a good district, and now they've named a community after you, Pflugerville. That's kind of a cool thing, too.
Well, it is. It's, a long heritage, seventh generation, but that seventh generation great-grandfather, that's where they settled when they came to the United States around 1850.
Okay, what about Pfluger? There's a Pfluger horn. Kind of a bass horn or something, a tuba or something. Do you have anything to do with that? I
don't think so. No, I think we've somebody in the family long ago must have developed a rod and a reel, a Pfluger fishing reel, but they spell it a little bit differently. So I don't even think that's our family. So I think we're just on the farmer side, Craig. I wish we could claim something else.
All right, good deal, and that's good. Let's talk. We've been visiting a little bit about this almost ad nauseum, but voter ID, photo ID, and I don't think we have to ask your opinion of it. It did pass in the House. What do you think will happen in the Senate?
Well, let's rewind the clock just a little bit. Over a year ago, we passed the SAVE Act out of the House, which required an ID to vote. Remember, I also passed a bill on the House floor where we had 54 Democrats that voted with me in order to prove your citizenship to vote in D.C., that you had to be a citizen in D.C. 54 Democrats that voted alongside that. So this week, we passed what's called the Save America Act. And the difference on the Save America Act is that when you go to register to vote, you have to prove that you are a citizenship. You can do that with a number of ways, with a passport, a birth certificate. There's immigration paperwork that you can do to prove that. So you register to vote, you prove you're a citizen, and then when you go vote, you have to use a government-issued ID. So we're going to match up who you are, and that's going to happen in all 50 states. The House passed this, and very disappointed that Democrats can't get behind this because you look across the country, 80+ % of Americans support this. We are going to press the Senate as hard as we possibly can to get this done. This makes sense. It's a real example of how we can secure our elections and have election integrity, and I hope that the Senate will take this up.
Do these Democrats really believe all the stuff they're telling us, that this is voter suppression? Hakeem Jeffries talking about voter suppression. Does he really believe that?
You really just have to scratch your head and ask that question. Do you really believe what you're saying, that it somehow oppresses, they've said, women who change their name? Now, that's nonsense. When you change your name and you get married, a young lady gets married, has a new last name, she goes and gets a new form of identification at the DMV for a driver's license, unimpeded to be able to do that. It's not hard, but you do have to go through some paperwork. So their narrative it's a complete lie in all cases. And we're seeing 80+% of every group, every demographic supports the notion of having election security. So I wonder if they believe it or if they just have to say it. They tell a dramatic story, but there's no fact or logical reason behind it.
All right, Congressman August Pfluger on KWEL AM and FM. Today it'll be 74 degrees, 58 right now. Rain's on the way too, 20 minutes after 7. And a lot of contention going on in various hearings in D.C., but you were at a hearing, I believe you may have, I don't know, did you conduct this hearing before the Homeland Security, and you talked about Democrats wanting open borders, of course Republicans want to keep them closed, but you took part in that.
We sure did. We had the ICE director and the CBP commissioner, Rodney Scott, who's worked for every president since Bill Clinton. These are, Craig, these are hearings that again, you ask the question, do you really believe that? And there's got to be a way for us to, even Democrats, to come to their senses on enforcing law and order. And my questions were really to Rodney Scott. I said, have the laws changed in any way, shape, or form? Have they changed substantially since you started working for Bill Clinton on the issue of deportation? And he said no. I said, okay, well, since we've established that fact, then what has changed? What is different in places like Minneapolis? And the ICE director, I asked the same thing, and they said basically they don't cooperate. The local and the state level don't cooperate. We've heard what Governor Walz said. We've heard what the mayor of Minneapolis said. They don't cooperate to help enforce federal laws. And then I asked him, I said, tell me how big of an issue it is of the harassment of officers, of ICE officers. And he said they have an 8,000% increase in the doxing of ICE officers. That means that they are putting online where these officers live. They are receiving death threats. Their family are receiving threats. And I said, that's not America. That's not the country we live in that abides by law and order. That's what third world countries do. Your officers are out there enforcing the law, and we have U.S. citizens who are threatening them because they're doing their job, and that is absolutely wrong. It really makes me sad and sick at my stomach.
All right, 7:22 now at KWEL AM 1070 and FM 107.1. Tell you what, a big story, too, is the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, revoking some government regulations. And this, I suspect, is going to be taken to court by those on the left. But tell us about this.
Well, it's interesting. You've got a guy from New York, Lee Zeldin, who I don't think knew much about the energy issues, didn't know a whole lot about West Texas and the oil and gas issues. And everywhere you see, he is revoking government regulations. He's cutting the red tape, and he's done it with regards to the issues we face in the Permian Basin, especially on attainment, making sure that it's easier to do business. There's a list of 100 things. He was my guest speaker at the Republican Study Committee just a couple of weeks ago, and he gave us a preview of the menu of items that they were working on. And Craig, he is a common sense guy. If there's a reason to do something and there is a way to do it better, then they're going to do it. But this is the largest deregulatory action in history, and he's claimed 31 actions that they have taken. We'll send a list to you, but all of these, whether it's the reconsideration on power plants, they call that the Clean Power Plan 2.0, or the oil and gas industry has air quality standards, like I just mentioned, on non-attainment for ozone and some of these other things. What he is doing is cutting regulations and lowering prices, and we're very proud of him. And of course, these left-wing groups are going to sue, but what we're trying to do is put it into statute that you can get the permit, you can do the job, that there's a time period to see whether or not you meet the standards, and then when that time period closes, that window is done and the project is approved. That's the big difference that hadn't been happening prior to now.
Now, what effect is this going to have out here in the Permian Basin to the smaller operators? I'm assuming that's going to be good for them.
Absolutely. We work very, very closely with PBPA, with AXPC. These are the trade organizations that take up for our smaller operators. And it means that they don't have to go buy some new gadget, some new valve or monitoring equipment that they didn't need. That's what the EPA previously wanted them to do, spend a tremendous amount of money to solve a problem that didn't exist. And they can do business more efficiently. They can do it at a lower cost, which means that Americans now receive all of the products that come from hydrocarbons at a lower cost. And it also means that the smaller players can continue to innovate. That's where it really hurts. Regulation hurts innovation. So now everyone in the Permian Basin can innovate, come up with a better solution, and compete. And that's what I'm trying to protect, is that competition.
All right. What about the pipelines? What effect on pipelines?
Well, we're working on this whole issue of permitting reform. And what Lee Zeldin has done on the regulatory side is he has started to cut that red tape, and it's been very effective. We have to pass this into law. We have to codify this. You know, you asked me earlier in the show about the SAVE Act, Save America Act, voter integrity. Well, the House passed it, and we sent it to the Senate. We need them to pass it. Now you're asking about permitting. The House has passed much of permitting reform. We've done our job. We did that just before Christmas, and we sent it over to the Senate, and we need the Senate to take this up. We need them to do their job over there and to codify this. But permitting reform is so massively important to pipelines. You think about the oil and gas industry. In Texas, we're lucky because we're governed by the Railroad Commission. They're the ones that can approve a pipeline that starts in Texas and ends in Texas. But if you cross over into New Mexico, then the federal government has a hand in approving that. And many states can't be like Texas. Obviously, we are very, very lucky in so many ways. But on pipelines, we need this passed. We need to be able to do it quicker and more efficiently.
And this will bring down the price of a new car. Is that right?
It'll bring down the price of everything. That the feedstock, if you're moving liquefied natural gas through a pipeline, then it brings down the cost of everything associated with that product, whether that's energy costs that hit the consumer or fertilizer that it sometimes is made into. If it's crude oil, then it affects so many things, including gasoline eventually, and so many other byproducts, plastics and medical equipment and everything that the crude oil is made into when it gets to that refinery. So it just makes sense. Let's build the pipeline quicker. Let's build it cheaper. Let's get the product down there quicker and cheaper. And Craig, you know this because you and I have talked about it, but I spend a lot of my time talking about what is the sweet spot in the price. The government shouldn't set the price of a barrel of oil. But I love where our president is going on, thinking about unleashing American energy. Sometimes he says things that, maybe $40 oil, and I said, no, Mr. President, that's not the right price. That's not going to allow us to continue to drill. What we really need is where it is today, around 65 to about 85, that gives you that sweet spot where gasoline is still low, groceries are still low, inflation is still low, but our producers can still drill that next well, which we know we need in this shale revolution.
And certainly he's aware of all of this, so he is cognizant of what you guys in Washington are telling him, I'm sure.
Well, he's one of a kind. He likes to make things happen right now. He's a businessman, and of course he likes to tout low gasoline. We want to make sure that he knows that there's a bottom on this market. And when oil got to the low 50s, it's been a month or so. Those are historically low prices, inflation adjusted. Those are historically low prices. So even at 65, when you adjust for inflation right now, that makes it tough to make that decision. And my first job is making sure that I take up for the Permian Basin and represent it by education through what that price means.
All right, we got to go. So do you, I know. Congressman August Pfluger, thank you much. Oh, by the way, I've always wondered, how do pipelines pollute and cause climate change? We always hear pipelines are causing climate change. I've never understood that.
Well, they're the safest, cleanest, and most efficient means of transportation. And this is the classic fight with the radical side. They don't cause climate change. They protect the product in order to get it there quicker and more efficiently, and they do it in an environmentally clean way. But the radical left, they're going to find something and they're going to latch onto it and tell a lie about it. That's the tactic that seems to be their number one way to communicate. So we just got to keep telling the story. I'm going to keep bringing people out to West Texas to prove to them and to show them what we do. So, and it's an honor to represent this great district. Thank you for always having me on and allowing me to go to Washington. It's tough and turbulent times, but I am 100% optimistic that this country is going to emerge stronger. We're going to come out of this better. And you know what? There's going to be a point in time where I think even Republicans and Democrats can argue and then eventually still be friends after those arguments. I'm looking forward to that day. We're not there quite yet, but I am looking forward to that day.
All right, Congressman Pfluger, thank you much, and good luck with that. That sounds good, but thanks much.